got here. So good stuff so far. Witnessing. All right. Which church are you with? All right. I don't think I met you. I'm Ryan. Yep. And then which church are you with? Community. Awesome. Glad you're here. And I know you, Ryan. And hey, the thing I want to begin with is that I'm not a techie, which might be hurting my credibility present, but I think it could be boosting your encouragement for applying it. So there's a lot of things we're doing in Palmer that are digital evangelism, and I'm not someone who really understands electronics or understands how a lot of it works, but we're still able to use them because they're available to people like me and you as well. So the techies here, if you want to ask technical questions, ask that Ryan, or ask Steve. But I do want to share basically just what I'm doing in Palmer that might be considered digital evangelism, and I hope it could help you guys out. So if there's a paper near you, I just put an outline of some of the things I want to go through. How long do we have? 40 minutes for this?
Yeah, the next one starts at 3. So about 40.
Okay. And just a challenge for each of you at whatever stage you're at. If you run a radio station or you don't have a Facebook or wherever you're at, the challenge is before this session is over, identify at least one action you will take to benefit your ministry digitally. So that could be any action. You maybe are going to say, hey, I want to look into a website or a YouTube channel or take this to my board. Any action you will take to benefit your ministry digitally. And if every one of us has one action we go away with, then it's probably worth our time looking into it. So I'm going to begin with prayer, and then we'll look at some of this digital evangelism. Father in heaven, thank you for the calling to ministry, and whether it uses digital technology or not, it is your work. And we want to be in the very best position we can to serve you. So I pray that you bless our thoughts as we think about some of the opportunities for us digitally and help it further your work. In Jesus' name, amen. So here is just what I've done. This is not the best things you could do. Here's what I've been doing. I thought I'd share those things, and maybe there'd be something you could pick up on. About November 2019, I had been here for a few months, pastored in Palmer, and I just saw across my email it was time to present evangelism fund requests to the conference. And I think I had like 2 weeks to do it when I saw that. So I talked about it with my board, talked about it with people, and we put together a creative evangelism fund request. We did not know that all the things that would happen in the next few months with COVID-19, but our creative evangelism fund request was all about digital ministry. So it looked something like this. We were going to rebuild our website and create a YouTube channel and boost our social media and review our email list. And we're going to hire a digital assistant, all these ideas that came together. And that was just because we were talking with the people. I was new there and I was saying, what do we need? What do we need to be doing? And people were saying, boy, we need growth in this area. So without any experience in it of my own, we just said, okay, if we need growth in this area, it'll have to get some funds. So we put together a list of things we thought we could do, and we submitted it to the conference. And here's where I want to begin. If you're in a church and you don't know where to begin, is our conference is supportive of this type of stuff, and they consider it evangelism. So you should too. So think of digital as evangelism. When you put your fund request or you make your plans for evangelism for 2023, think of digital as evangelism. And that's what we did in Palmer. We didn't know exactly where it'd end up. It was the perfect time to start thinking this way. We didn't realize that, but we put it out there as our fund request. And then we made a plan and we got the conference support. So that's encouragement if you're not knowing where to begin. Our conference is super supportive of creative evangelism. So begin right there. Talk about it with your church and ask the conference if you could have some funds to start looking into this sort of thing. And then we didn't do everything on that list. We began the process of hiring an assistant, and then COVID-19 happened and that assistant wasn't comfortable coming in and doing the work. So we never had that. So a few of those pieces we never ended up submitting receipts for. We just continued on, but more than half of them we were able to do. And the first step we did was create a YouTube channel. Does your church have a YouTube channel? No. So here's some advantages of a YouTube channel. We live stream straight from a YouTube channel. So we just had services a few hours ago in Palmer. We live streamed from there and we can interact with the people in the chat. And then it archives all your sermons or church services. So that's what we do is we have our full church service. Then we have the sermon. And we've started doing a whole bunch of other stuff. We have like 1-minute encouragement videos where just pieces of a sermon will be spliced in there and shared. You can do all kinds of stuff under playlist. You can see right there. We have sermons from 2020, sermons from 2021. We have church announcements. So you can go under the playlist and check out all those things. So YouTube channel is free to use. You sign up, you post videos, pretty easy. So that was where we started. And we haven't decided to move on from YouTube to a different platform. We really like how YouTube enables us to have the video out there ready to go. And in Palmer this week, we've probably only had 50 people come to church because it's, a lot of COVID going around. Everyone else was on YouTube live feed. So I just want to pause right there with YouTube. Any questions about YouTube or how it could help your ministry? Conference has a YouTube channel. You can find all kinds of good stuff there. But a few over here said your church doesn't have one. I would look into if you video anything in your church service, you have to begin there. You don't video, if you don't video it, you don't put it on YouTube. But if you video anything, I'd look into getting a YouTube channel and making those public and sharing those. People from around the world can find the message right there. Uh-huh. Okay. So you get it live streamed. So yeah, there's other ways. There's also another resource that a lot of people enjoy. It's called Church Online Platform. It's created by Life Church, and it does what YouTube does, but the chat features are way more tuned to church. So you can set up prayer rooms that people can call an elder and talk with an elder. So that's a lot more tuned to churches. We've talked about going there, but we haven't done it. So on Church Online Platform or Online Church Platform, Google those words and you'll find it. So we created a YouTube channel. We have like 300 some videos on there, and we just keep putting out videos, multiple videos every week. And then websites. Your church does have a website. I don't know if you use it or not, but it does. Your church does have a website. So every single Adventist church has a website under Adventist Church Connect. Anyone use Adventist Church Connect? That's what we use in Palmer. That's what we use here at the conference office. And they can look really stale, or they can look pretty good if you work through the templates and populate them with pictures of people from your church and smiles and these things. So everyone has access to that. What we're considering in Palmer, we chose Adventist Church Connect because it's linked to the church. It looks like the church. It auto-populates with information about the church. What we're considering right now is going through Evangelism websites by Sermon View. You might have worked with Sermon View for evangelistic series. And what I love about Sermon View is that they are Adventist, so they get Adventist. So they understand the message and what our structure is as a church. And they've created a separate website from Sermon View called Evangelism Websites. And they create custom websites for churches that are meant to be evangelistic. And we're seriously looking into their templates and their support on that because they just look so good and they're accessible. So this is just a sample website from Sermon View, and it looks a lot better than I could design one. So that's another option if you're wanting to make it look just a little sharper, make it a little more functional. They've updated the audio players in there and updated the format for downloading PDFs and different things. So a really nice look that they're offering there. So church websites, just pause right there. I'm not an expert on church websites, but any thoughts that come up as you're thinking about your church and websites and how you could benefit there?
The templates are easy enough to use that accountant can play with them and get up some new information.
Absolutely. Yeah, pieces of advice I'd share from doing it is, if you get someone in for communication and they want to make changes to the website, don't just go switching templates like for fun, because we've done that in Palmer. We had everything here. We switched templates and then things disappear. So test the template before you switch it on Adventist Church Connect. And actually, just about a month ago, they added a dozen new templates. So there's lots there. And when you when you switch it, test it. And then also, I think the biggest thing for me for websites, I'd love it to be attractive, but I'd like it even more if it's accurate. So if your calendar says there's Bible study on Tuesday night and someone shows up and there's no Bible study, they're probably not going to want to come to your events. So, and they don't trust it. We say we have a calendar, but but it's out of date. So I just don't trust that. So even more than it looking sharp, I'd rather it look okay and be completely up to date and accurate. So websites, I think that's a huge area for our churches. So back in March 2020, I'm sitting in my house and I, got a big box and put my computer and everything in my office that I thought I'd need. And I went to my house because I thought I might be locked in there. And I'm sitting here trying to figure out how to set up a website. And we got the conference or the church one set up. And then I actually decided to make a personal resource website. And I'm glad I did, because as church websites might change, we could lose things, or I don't have full control over that. But I decided to make a personal resource website where I put sermons or anything I'd write or anything I'd share on audio. And that's proven super helpful. I use it as my business card rather than handing someone something. I just say pastorryanrogers.com. You'll find it right there. So I have a website I've made on what I use, WordPress. And if your pastor has a lot of content or an elder has a lot of content, I don't think it's a bad idea to look into websites there. The audio player was a lot better than I got on Adventist Church Connect, and things just worked a lot easier. And I just link it on our church website. It says pastor's page, and it just links right to this. So I put sermons on there. We have a podcast that runs through there. I link it to my social media. I have an aspiration to record a bunch of music and put it on there, but it's very limited right now. But that has proven so helpful. People can find it so easy, just right there. Is lucky enough to get my name right in the address. So that's an easy resource website. And I think that's the key, is making it accessible. So I worked really hard to make it accessible. If you click on sermons, you get the link to the video right there. You get the audio strip, so you could download that or you could share it. So I do this all the time. If I hear about someone who's going in for surgery, I think back to a message I did 3 months ago about encouragement, and I push that share button and I text it to them and say, hey, I was thinking about you, and I did this study a while back and I wanted you to be encouraged by it. And you can do so much encouraging without any extra work. So it's all just right there. I just share that and people get a word of encouragement right to their texting on their smartphone. And then I include the text written out, and people can find it right there. So much you can do to expand the ministry. And here's why I put a lot of work into this as a pastor. It's because I put a lot of time into preparing for a sermon. And I like a good deal. And I don't want to put a bunch of time and preach it and have it die. I'd rather put a bunch of time and then put an extra 1 or 2 hours so that it lives on and people can access it anytime, anywhere, and it can be a resource rather than just a one-time event. So if you're pastor in your church, or you preach in your church, and you want that ministry to kind of be extended, to be more available, it makes me super happy to know that the hours I put back into sermon series in September are still paying off by blessing somebody who finds it today. Yeah, thank you. No, I think it's been some of these things, digital ministry, sometimes you said smart. Sometimes I thought, was this really smart? Because it takes a lot of effort. And I think sometimes with digital ministry, it's the payoff that happens years later as you've built resources and made yourself available that's really going to glorify God. Sometimes the hours on the front end don't feel like it when you're searching around how to build a website and these things. but the payoff is big. And then our podcast. So you're familiar with what a podcast is? So sometimes we just refer to any audio thing as a podcast, but there are podcast feeds that can be picked up with different apps. And you'll have Apple Podcasts or Buzzsprouts or different apps, and they'll pick up a podcast feed. And if I just have a audio on my Adventist Church Connect website, it's probably not going to be picked up on any podcast feed just by chance. What we did is we actually created a podcast we used Podbean, but you could use any podcast app, and they have a feed to them. And then we went through the process of extending that podcast feed to every app. So Stitcher and Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So at the end of our podcast, we say, you can find us by searching for Palmer SDA Church wherever you get podcasts. And that's super accessible. If I have a podcast app on my phone, I just type in Palmer SDA Church and I can listen to the sermon audio. So we actually went beyond our website and we signed up for a podcast feed through Podbean, and that allows us to have that right on people's apps. It's super easy to share and super easy to find, and they can go to our website and they can find it, or they can just search Palmer SDA Church. And we use our podcast for that. We also use it for a weekly devotional called Speak Lord, and that goes out so once a week that goes out, and we've integrated some audio into that and upped it from, it used to be like you'd hear my kids yelling in the background, and we've gotten some microphones to make that sound really smooth, and big encouragement to people. Yeah, you like the kids in the background? Yeah, birds chirping, water running. So we could still go back. But the podcast has been a steady encouragement to a lot of people. And we could just direct them to anywhere else that does excellent audio, but it's personal to our church. So when I can't go visit in the hospital, I can't go see someone and the restrictions are there, rather than just saying, here's a word I heard from Doug Batchelor that was really good, I can say, here's something that I'm sharing with our church and I wanted you to have it. And it's been really nice. I just did that yesterday with someone who went into a rehab center and I can't go visit them. So it allows us to extend our personal ministry of our church into places we wouldn't get to. Social media, I don't do much with social media, but it's a great tool. What does your church do with social media? What do you do with social media?
Well, we have a Facebook page for our church.
Mm-hmm.
So we post health things on just different things that people can do with health. And I do that weekly, just once a week. I just post it and share it in the community. So Adventists. So sometimes when you have to boost your post to pay for it, that's what happens. So we've had a lot of interaction with people. One gentleman, his wife is a Mormon, and he used to be a Seventh-day Adventist in Congo. And she found our site, and she messaged me and said, hey, my husband wants to get back to church. So that's some of the ways, you can use social media.
Oh man, there's so unlimited who you can connect with. So our church does have a Facebook page. I was posting things to it on a somewhat regular basis. And here's why I stopped. Because I wasn't checking the comments. I didn't prioritize time in my schedule to check the comments, and no one else did. And we got people asking really important questions and sharing really important information with no response. And I thought that looked really bad. So what I've done is I've pulled back, and now we are recruiting a team of people to monitor those comments and post, so we can do it in a way that's actually present rather than just putting content out for the world but not engaging. So our new goal right now for Facebook, as we're rethinking it, is not just to post content to promote our church, but to actually engage with people, like meet people there in a digital space. And we're not quite there in Palmer. The church, the school is doing excellent. So this is just a snapshot of Amazing Grace Academy. And I don't know if you heard that we had a big water leak. So there's people working there and people follow that well. And Karen Carlton has a very careful plan of how she posts on Facebook. She schedules things out. She thinks about what types of posts. And if I've had too many posts like this, I put another post like this. So she has a Facebook social media calendar and she has a plan to it. It can be a huge tool in just being regular and consistent and present in those ways. I chose personally not to go with Facebook for myself because it overwhelms me. I don't know how you guys do Facebook. When I pull it up on my phone or my computer, I get these like notifications that start going crazy and I can't keep up with them and I just close it down and run away. So I did Instagram. So I do social media and I do Instagram and I have it auto populate to a Facebook page that I never look at. And then I do Instagram and I love Instagram because it just has less things buzzing at me. So I put, I try to recycle any ministry resource that I'm doing because they can be reused for things. So for example, this week I'm preaching about, I have a sermon series I'm preaching through about being good neighbors. And I took yesterday when I was finalizing my slide for the sermon, I took 3 of my favorite points out and I made them into Instagram posts and I scheduled them to come on Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. So, and then at the bottom in the description, it says, hey, I'm preaching on being a good neighbor and you can find the whole sermon right here. And there's a link. And that way, the thoughts that I had that I felt like God was with me and they were valid points to share, they don't just happen on Sabbath morning, but they get reiterated as people are looking through while they're eating breakfast or whatever. And they get to be reminded of those points that are valuable. So it can extend the life of whatever you think is good going on in your church. And so that's how I use Instagram. And it could be, you can do so much more. There's social media networks I don't even know about. They're all over the place. Anything else you guys are doing with social media that's positive? Another conference has used Facebook for town halls. Yep. So there's all kinds of potential you can have there. A piece of advice I got that we're trying to implement in our Palmer Facebook when we reapply ourselves to that is think of it as a place of interaction. Treat it like you would treat any place of interaction, like coming to elders meeting or a potluck or a church Christmas party. You don't just want to go around broadcasting yourself. You want to interact with people and ask questions about them too. So the better use of Facebook is not just to promote what my church is doing, but maybe to click on the page of the church across the street and say, hey, I thought that was so cool that you did the homeless feed last Sunday. So you're interacting with them. So if you're always talking about you, that's a one-sided conversation, but you could actually use it as a space to interact with just like you would talk with someone at potluck. So that's a better use of that digital space. One that I haven't prioritized, but I get the concept. So that's social media. Here's a tool that I use all the time. In fact, I'm using it right now to present my slides. Canva. Anyone ever heard of Canva? Yeah. I went to a church planting seminar or conference in 2018, and I sat down with someone at a table and asked him what he does. And he says, well, I do tech stuff for work. I said, well, I'm not very techie. Tell me one thing I could do to help myself with technology as a pastor. And he said, sign up for Canva. So I did. And he also told me to sign up for Trello, which I did. I used the 2 things he told me I use to this day on a daily basis. And what Canva does is it allows you to do graphics that look good without being a graphic designer. So I'd love to be a graphic designer, but I don't want to take all that time. So there's all these templates for different things, letterheads or Instagram posts or presentations. And you can find a template, put your own stuff in it. It looks really sharp. I find it easier to use than PowerPoint. You can export it as a video. You can export it as a picture. So what I do for my sermon slides is I create them in there and just export them as PNGs. And then the audio visual team puts those into a presentation. And I can do one for a sermon slide and then change the size and use it for an Instagram post later. So much you can do with Canva. And you can use it without paying, or you can sign up. I think we do $9 a month to have the pro membership, and super good tool for us.
And can I just say, if
Yeah.
you're a nonprofit, you get Canva for free.
Oh, so we're paying a charity gift there. Yeah. So that's what we'll do. We'll get it for free now. So eAdventist, are you using eAdventist? So eAdventist, they run it out of the Union, but it serves Adventist churches well, and it's improving all the time. So eAdventist is a tool for the clerk to get membership straight and all these things. But since it's linked to your membership, you can use it for a lot of other things. We use it for our email service in Palmer. We were using Gmail, and then we considered MailChimp. And now we're using eAdventist because every contact we have is already there. All our membership is there. Friends of our church are there. So our weekly e-news that we send out on Thursdays comes through eAdventist. And it looks pretty good. You have to insert your own pictures and these things, but they have templates you can follow and insert into there. They also have a texting service. So you can actually mass text your church members through eAdventist. So communication is made helpful. They struggle to get numbers to Alaska. We worked on this with them, but it's possible. And they have a directory that you can print out a directory with pictures if you insert the pictures. And they're working on, so this is what I heard from Brian Ford, they're working on a directory app. So currently in Palmer, we use Instant Church Directory. We pay $7 a month, but you could probably get it for free for a nonprofit. No, not if it's actually directed for churches. So they probably went around that rule. So Instant Church Directory is what we use, but I hope to see in the future us dropping that and just going with eAdventist. So I get emails all the time about people wanting to sell me church management software. And I think eAdventist is probably our best bet. Well, it's free to us, but it has all of our information, and they know us. They know our structure. So I could pay some other company to have good church management software where I keep my my list of people all together and I have my communications. But in eAdventist, I can pull up an elders list, or I can pull up my current officers, or I can pull up everyone born before this day. I can pull up maps if I want to visit and see where I should go to visit members. It's a huge tool. We use it for our so this is our e-news, what it looks like, just scrolling down through it. And you just put your own pictures in, add your own text, but it looks fine. It looks good. This is what appears in the emails each week from our church, something kind of like that. And video, I think video has a whole bunch of potential. So we can video our church services, but we can video lots of things. So I have some equipment over here. If I have time, I'll tell you about some of the equipment we're getting in Palmer. But we're doing video just for communication in a fresh way. We use them for church announcements. So this is what our church announcements kind of look like. It's a video scrolling through our the same thing we have in the e-news, but put in presentation form for the church service. So while the prelude is going, we have a video loop. It takes a minute. The video loop going through, sharing highlights in the church service. I've used them for sermon introductions, just a fresh way to communicate. So I think over the summer, I did a series that every introduction had about 5 minutes on video, where I was off site, not in the church, doing something out in nature, somewhere in the public, and I would record a video and it'd introduce the sermon, and then I'd get up and preach. And then it can go out to Facebook or wherever else, and it creates a lot of engagement. It takes a little extra work, but I found it fresh and fun, and people enjoyed that. One of my favorite things we've done with videos is baptismal interviews. So not everyone wants to give a testimony, but I love more than just profession of faith when you read the 13 things and they say yes. I love when they can share what God's doing in their life. And it's very rare that someone agrees to do that. But I found it a lot easier when you talk with someone, you say, would you mind if I recorded this, you and me talking, and then we could share it when we walk into the baptismal tank. So we had a baptism, I forget exactly what month, but everyone who was being baptized that day agreed to do it. So we'd walk into the tank and there'd be on the screen a 40-second clip. I would talk to them for half an hour and I'd cut down the most exciting things they said into 40 seconds. And they'd be sharing about their love for God and their desire to serve him and the things they've overcome. And you put a little music to it and it's touching and it's powerful. And then you go right from that into the baptism. And I found people were just really touched by taking the extra time to video and share their testimony in that way. And they didn't have to get nervous. We've featured ministries, so Camp Tukaskoya or our school. And it's really hard just to tell about the good things that are happening. But if you have a video camera and you can interview people and bring that off-site footage into your church service, people start to see what's happening. And video can do that. I'm also using video in Palmer in a studio format. We've taken a room that was just storage, painted it, and purchased a whole bunch of equipment. And we're using it as a studio, so it actually looks good. We have the lights. And so I'll share some of that equipment, answer equipment questions if you have any. And dreams I have for that studio is that if we want to do something to promote Amazing Grace Academy, we get kids in there telling about it and it looks good. It's all right there. It can go right online. If we want to connect with the conference at large and have our ministry overflow into other churches, we could do a kids program and just send them the videos and engage with them in that way. We could have our youth group do something that would overflow into blessing another youth group. So there's all kinds of ways you could connect if you had decent quality video to share whatever you're doing locally with others beyond. And there's been a few times I've been gone and needed to record a sermon and put it up there. So one example of the studio that was unfinished when we recorded it, if you saw the Christmas sermon that Pastor Adrian and myself did, that was in that studio. And it wasn't quite finished. The lights weren't there and the background wasn't there, but it was a start. All kinds of good video. So, talked about a few things we're doing. There's way more things you could do digitally. Have you thought of something you could do? I'd love to hear it. What is one action you could take to benefit your ministry digitally? You have one? Because we got time. I can wait for you guys. Is there ability for our people on Zoom to share if they had any?
Yeah, if they want to chat.
Yeah, chat in whatever you're thinking. This is one thing I could do to benefit my ministry digitally. You had your hand
Well,
up.
I think engagement's important. So our Facebook page is simply promoting the conference or, some of our churches, but I don't go in comments. But like you, it's time consuming. So I really am choosing what platforms to use.
Yes.
And trying to be more effective and engage
Mhm.
on a few rather than try to blanket many.
Yep. And that's what I realized is I don't have the time to do it. But there's somebody in the conference who could come alive in ministry by being handed that responsibility. And
I really would like a young adult Instagram page. That's really been on my heart and mind for a long time.
mhm.
And so I'm hoping to partner. We're looking at Walla Walla and getting an intern communications. And then I want to go to AGA and get a junior or senior to kind of carry that on and help them with their application for college or whatever. So we've got that in the works because
Mhm.
the young people have the talent.
Yep. So Brenda's looking into ways to pull people in to make Facebook more engaging rather than just promoting. What are you guys going to do in your churches? What's one thing you could do? Ryan, what's one thing you do that's awesome that I don't know about, that I didn't talk about?
We do a Zoom church service.
Mhm.
And I suppose to be balanced, we should probably share the other side of digital evangelism. And that is, we've experienced some challenges with
Mhm.
that it's very easy to immerse yourself in the process of being digital
Mhm.
and become less personal. So I have watched over the process. I have seen the focus shift to being more about the production,
Mhm.
and I consider that a big liability in the evangelism. So,
Yes.
and this is, I mean, I'm a techie geek. If it's digital, I'm into it. You know,
Mhm.
so I thought I would be more excited about it, but there's a real danger there.
Yep. Hey, that's something we've wrestled through in Palmer, and so important to realize there is a place for the polished, perfect production. And Loma Linda does it well, and it serves people in an awesome way. The question we asked in Palmer is, can we do that well? Not without sacrificing pretty much everything else we're doing. So we've decided to intentionally put our efforts into making sure the live stream isn't choppy and like it's accessible and easy, and making sure that people know how to get on. It's not frustration to do, but when they get on, there's going to be gaps when people walk off the stage and walk on the stage. It's going to feel like they're watching, you know, a normal church service, not there as a live production. So that's the decision we made, was we want to make it easy, but we don't want to try to be what we're not. We just can't pull that off. So here's an idea that just happened a few hours ago for the first time in Palmer. We have some members who moved away about a year ago. They still want to stay connected, and they're connecting remotely. They want to move back, and they came up with a ministry. So we set up a TV kind of like this in our foyer, just a little smaller, with a camera and a microphone. And they gathered. So in our live stream, we had a Zoom link and said, join us for fellowship after church. So all the remote people had that opportunity, and several joined a fellowship group. And then as people walked by leaving the church, they waved and talked, and it was awesome to watch. There was connection and people introducing themselves, not even knowing they came to the same church, just walking by, waving at the camera. There's all kinds of things you can do. We got our youth working on some videos. I love this concept, and it's a visioning concept that helps you vision for the future. So here's what they're doing. They're taking that camera and a microphone every week after church, and we're sharing a question. And they're all visioning questions like, what are your hopes and dreams for our church? Or how would you like to see us do evangelism? Or just questions that are all positive to answer, right? And they're asking people those questions as they leave the church service. Not everyone's going to volunteer, but they're trying to be warm and welcoming and say, hey, share with us. Then they're taking the time throughout the week to clip those down into a 60-second segment, and it's playing the following week in the church service. So this is instantly, like, this is not me sharing what we should do. This is the people of the church sharing what they hope to do. And then everyone in the church gets to hear that really positive dream they have. So it's a visioning, like a loop. They share and they hear it, and it helps us all think that way. So just tons of things we could be doing. One of the things I'm working on with all this equipment, so my big project right now, it's been funded through the union through a Shark Tank evangelism initiative. And I've been working on it for about 9 months, and it's not live yet, but the pieces to get there are, and I'm doing a podcast that is storytelling format. So I'm taking my microphones out and meeting people places, and I'm looking for God's movement in our community. So the things God is doing, the underlying question is, what is God doing in our community? So I'm going to nonprofits and other churches or mission projects, and I'm just capturing their story in audio, doing interviews, capturing the story, and then putting it into a story that when people listen to it, they say, I had no idea that this was happening. I could go out on Wednesday nights and I could help do this, or I could do this here. And they get excited about what God is doing. Because the thing is, God is active in our communities. We just don't have a news channel that goes around and follows what God is doing. So that's one of the projects I'm working on right now, is capturing stories that you'd say that's where God is moving, hoping to bring people into that. So there's all kinds of ways you can do digital evangelism. Any thoughts or questions? I'd love to hear if you have accepted a challenge here to identify one thing you could do. Just one way you can move the needle on digital evangelism in your church.
We have Warren Downs out of Bellingham, who has their Sabbath school And so we have people in Dillingham that is doing, their challenge is internet, you know?
Yep. 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 So just in our last few minutes, I'll share some of the equipment that I'm using. Maybe it sparks some ideas for you. Can we turn the camera over here? Yeah. So audio, this is what I'm learning, is that audio is actually more important than video. Because if you think about going online, imagine going onto YouTube and finding something you want to watch. You could have perfectly clear picture, but if the audio, kind of like the audio is going weird right here, if the audio is scratchy and it's painful to listen to and you can't hear it, it doesn't matter how clear the video is. And you can have average video with good quality audio and you feel like you're present with them, right? So we decided to go big on audio for the podcast we're working on. So we got 3 of these. These microphones just make it sound like you're right there, and they just sit on the table. So if you're doing an interview, so this is where we spent more money on audio than video. So when we're sitting interviewing someone, we're using these, and then they go into, we have a real portable recorder. So this has 6 channels and it's very small. So I could take this into a coffee shop or wherever, and I could capture audio through an attached microphone, or I can hook those more quality microphones into one of the inputs there. So that's a very small office right there. Bring this in and you have audio. And then we're also using a shotgun mic for when we're asking questions in the lobby and there's noise all around. We have this attached to the camera, so it's aiming right at the person. You can put it on a stand or you can put it right on the camera. We put it on a stand and we just have it hovering right above the shot. And that way, even if people are visiting right behind you, you can hear that when they answer the questions. I also have like a pistol grip that it goes on, so I could walk around and aim it at something and you could get the audio right there. And then the microphones that I found super, super helpful. So I use these when I'm hiking on a trail preaching a sermon, because I've done that a few times. They're called Tascam DR10L, but they just go, in my pocket, and I get one of these little lapels, and then I sync the video and audio together, and it makes it so much better than if you were just videoing me with an iPhone over there and you hear this distant noise. It's right there, just right there. And that's what I used. I got this as soon as we went remote. We did that for 54 Sabbaths a few years back. And this little microphone was my favorite little tool. So I got 2 of them now, so I can do interviews. If we sat down somewhere, I could put one on you, put one on me, put the audio together. I don't regret getting those. Yeah, we made a studio in Palmer and covered the walls with a bunch of foam like this. Sometimes if we're getting a lot of popping in our noise, we'll use one of these in front of the microphones. And then we just went, I think this was like in the $1,500 range somewhere for a camera. But we chose a camera that does not have record limits. So you can record continuously rather than it shutting off at 30 minutes or something. So we can set this up and we can use it for a big variety of things. And then the other piece for audio or video that I've done is got a GoPro, and the GoPro advantage is it goes anywhere. It goes underwater, does whatever, and you can clip it on your helmet when you're riding a bike, or you can stick it out your door when you're driving, as long as someone has the wheel. You can do whatever with that. And then I have a gimbal for iPhone, and you don't need to buy a camera. If you got an iPhone, you can do quality video. And especially if you have an iPhone and one of those microphones that clips on your shirt, you can do quality video and audio, and you can share stories and bring people right into the experience. So that's some of the things we're doing. I think we'll end it now. And if you have any questions, I'll try to answer them if we can. So, yes.
Can you give me the microphone brand again so that I can put it in the, that is a question.
Which ones?
Okay. So it's your-
Yep. So this is a Rode, and it's the Video Mic NTG. There are microphones higher than this and lower than this. I chose this one because it can connect right into my camera. So it's not just an XLR. It also has, what do you call them, 1/4-inch connections. So it can plug right into your smartphone. So it's very connectable and high quality sound. And then this is the Shure SM7. And if you look, just go online and watch any video podcast, and 95% of them will have this because it's great. So it's just, and the best ones, you'll find the best, highest rated ones will be using that same microphone. So it's been around, I think, for 18 years, but it's a really good microphone. And then the little ones that I pack around, they're task cams. Did I say DR or DL? Where did I put that? And this was recommended to me by a wedding photographer who puts these on bride and groom. I took the recommendation. So it's DR10L. And I have been so pleased. That little tiny microphone does a really good job. Task cam. And I mean, there's all kinds of gear reviews you can look up. I just had to trust people who were experts. So I don't know this stuff. So what I did is if 3 or 4 experts said it, I said, you're right, I'm going to go with that. So I took a lot of advice from Think Medium. You can find them all over YouTube. And watched them enough that I know they have religious convictions of their own. And I think that's maybe one of the things that I found compatible about them is just their eagerness and their joy. But it's just a marketing company that does audio gear reviews, video gear reviews, and they tell you, like, in this budget range, go for this camera. In this budget range, go for this. And I found their advice pretty solid. All right. I hope you have something in your mind that you could do more for ministry through some of the technology we have. I'm not a tech guy, but we're doing a lot of stuff in Palmer and it's reaching people. And so I think you could start wherever you're at and do some good stuff with tech. So I'll pray a blessing on our tech journey. Let's pray. Father in heaven, I pray that whatever you wanted to hear in this time would touch someone's heart and that it would result in benefit for the kingdom. Bless our efforts as we seek to engage and broadcast and record and whatever we might do. We recognize we're amateurs, but it still can be used for your kingdom. So we give you these efforts in Jesus' name. Amen.